Starting tomorrow, you're no longer part of this family." The words were soft, almost kind, but they hit harder than any slap. The music was still playing. People were laughing. Glasses were clinking. Cameras were flashing everywhere. No one noticed the moment my heart broke. The bride was smiling as she whispered it. Her lips barely moved. Her eyes stayed on the crowd, not on me. I froze in my chair. For 1 second, I thought I imagined it. I looked up at her face, searching for a joke, a mistake, anything that said she did not mean it. But she leaned closer and added quietly, "You should be grateful it lasted this long." Then she straightened, lifted her chin, and walked away like she had just said hello. Before I continue, let me ask you something. If you enjoy real-life emotional stories about family, betrayal, and hidden strength, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments what country you are watching from. I want to know where you are listening from today. Now listen carefully, because everything you think you know about this wedding is about to change. The room was beautiful. White flowers covered every table. Soft lights hung from the ceiling. A slow love song played in the background. This was supposed to be a happy day. My son's wedding day. I sat near the back of the hall, hands folded tightly in my lap, smiling at anyone who looked my way. I had spent hours getting ready. I wore my best dress. I even practiced my smile in the mirror. I wanted to look proud. I wanted to belong. But after the whisper, I felt invisible. People passed my table without stopping. Plates were placed in front of others first. Laughter rose and fell around me like waves, but none of it touched me. I searched for my son's face. He stood near the center of the room, laughing with his new wife. She held his arm like she owned it. He leaned toward her, listening closely. He did not look in my direction. Not even once. My chest tightened. I told myself, he's busy. It's his day. But deep inside, something else whispered back. He heard her. I remembered the first time I held him. He was so small. So quiet. I remembered the nights I stayed awake when he was sick. The days I skipped meals so he could eat. The years I worked until my hands hurt, just to give him a better life. All of that. And now I was nothing. No longer family. The words burned in my head. I slowly stood up. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to walk. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. The noise from the hall faded behind the closed doors. That was when my tears finally fell. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just silent tears sliding down my face. I wiped them away quickly. I did not want anyone to see me like that. I reached into my purse for my phone. And my fingers touched something I did not expect. Paper. Thick paper. An envelope. I pulled it out slowly. My name was written on it. My handwriting. My heart started to beat faster. Because in that moment, I remembered exactly why I brought it with me. I remembered what it contained. And I realized something important. The bride thought she had just erased me. But she had no idea what I was about to do. I heard footsteps behind me. Someone was coming. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. And just as a voice said my name, I saw what was inside. Inside the envelope were papers. Not love letters. Not money. Documents. I stared at them as my hands shook. The night air felt cold on my skin, but my face was burning. My heart beat so loud I was sure someone nearby could hear it. I quickly slid the papers back into the envelope and closed it. Not yet. Not here. Footsteps came closer. I wiped my face fast and turned around. It was my son. He stood there in his black suit, looking confused, almost annoyed. "There you are," he said. "Why did you leave the hall?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. I looked at his face, trying to find the boy I raised. He sighed. Everyone's asking where you went. Everyone. I almost laughed. I needed air, I said quietly. He nodded, but his eyes did not soften. You should come back in. This is not the time to cause drama. Drama. The word hit me hard. I wanted to ask him if he heard what his bride said to me. I wanted to ask him if he agreed with her. I wanted to scream. But I said nothing. I simply nodded and followed him back inside. The music felt louder now. Too loud. I returned to my seat at the back. People smiled again, but it felt fake. Like they were smiling at a stranger. I noticed something else. My table was now empty. No food. No drink. The plate I had before was gone. I sat down slowly, holding my purse close to my chest. From across the room, the bride glanced at me. Just once. Her smile was small. Satisfied. Like someone who had won. I looked away. Inside my purse, the envelope felt heavy. Like it was alive. I told myself again, not yet. As the night went on, speeches began. Friends stood up and talked about love. About new beginnings. About family. Each word felt sharp. Then the bride stood to speak. The room became quiet. She smiled sweetly and held the microphone with confidence. I am so happy to be joining this wonderful family, she said. I feel so supported and loved. People clapped. She continued, family is very important to me. I believe in strong boundaries and moving forward without negativity. My stomach turned. She looked straight at me for half a second. No one else noticed. But I did. While people cheered again, my mind went back many years. Back to the first time I felt something was wrong. It was the day my son told me he was moving out. I'm getting married, he said. Things will change. I was happy for him. I truly was. But from that day, the phone calls became shorter. The visits became fewer. Decisions were made without me. And slowly, I was pushed aside. I told myself it was normal. I told myself I was imagining things. But I wasn't. Later that night, the bride's mother came to my table. She smiled politely but did not sit down. I hope you understand, she said softly, that things are different now. Different how? I asked. She paused. Young people need space. Too much involvement can cause problems. I nodded slowly. I understand, I said. But my hands were shaking under the table. The wedding ended late. Guests hugged the couple. Gifts were collected. Laughter filled the air again. I stood quietly and waited. As the couple prepared to leave, I stepped forward. I wish you both happiness, I said. My son hugged me quickly. One arm. No warmth. The bride leaned in and whispered one last thing. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Then she pulled away. They left. Just like that. That night, I went home alone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I sat at the table and placed the envelope in front of me. I stared at it for a long time. Memories flooded back. The sacrifices. The promises. The papers I signed years ago without understanding how powerful they would become. I opened the envelope again. This time, I read every page slowly. And I made a decision. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my son. We need to talk, he said. About what? I asked calmly. There have been some misunderstandings, he replied. We think it's best if you take some space. Space. That was the word they used for erasing me. I understand, I said. He sounded relieved. Good, he said. We'll call you when things settle. The line went dead. I sat there quietly for a long time. Then I stood up. I picked up the envelope. And I walked out of the house. Because while they thought they were pushing me out, they had no idea what doors they were about to open. And the first one was waiting for me at an office downtown. An office tied directly to the papers in that envelope. As I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed. One message. From the bride. It read, "Please remember what we discussed. Don't force me to protect my family." I smiled for the first time since the wedding, because she had no idea what protection really looked like. And just as I stepped inside the office, someone inside said my name. The office was quiet. Too quiet. The walls were white. The chairs were hard. The air smelled like paper and old books. I stood there, holding my purse tightly, wondering how my life had led me to this moment. Someone inside had said my name. I looked up slowly. A woman stepped out from behind a desk. She wore glasses and held a thick file in her hands. Her face showed surprise, and then recognition. "I didn't think I would see you again," she said carefully. I swallowed. "I didn't think I would come back," I replied. She gestured toward a chair. "Please, sit." I sat down, my knees shaking. She placed the file on the desk and looked straight at me. "Is this about the documents?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. "They want me gone." She sighed slowly, like someone who already knew this day would come. "They always do," she said. She opened the file. Inside were copies of the same papers I carried in my envelope. "Years ago," she said, "you signed these to protect your child. You trusted people. You didn't ask too many questions." I looked down at my hands. "I just wanted him to be safe," I whispered. "And you did that," she said firmly. "More than you realize." She turned the pages slowly, explaining each one in simple words. What I owned. What I controlled. What could never be taken from me. Each sentence felt like a small light turning on in a dark room. "So, they can't just push me out?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Not legally. Not after what you did." I felt something rise in my chest. Not anger. Not sadness. Strength. When I left the office, my steps felt steadier. Outside, the sun was bright. The world was still moving, even though mine had almost stopped. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the bride. "We noticed you didn't reply. We expect peace." I stared at the screen. Peace. That was the word they used when they wanted silence. I typed a short reply. "I understand." Then I put my phone away. Days passed. No calls. No visits. No messages. It was like I had disappeared. At first, the quiet hurt. I sat alone at night, listening to the ticking clock, thinking about birthdays I might not be invited to, holidays I would spend alone. But then something strange happened. The pain began to change. It turned into clarity. I began to remember things I had ignored before. The way decisions were made without me. The way my opinions were brushed aside. The way love became control. I realized something painful. They didn't want a mother. They wanted silence. One afternoon, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello." I answered. There was a pause. Then my son's voice. "Why are people calling me?" he asked sharply. "Who?" I replied calmly. "Banks. Offices. People asking questions." I said nothing. "Did you do something?" he demanded. I took a deep breath. "I reviewed my papers," I said simply. Silence filled the line. "You promised you wouldn't interfere," he said. "I promised to support you," I replied. "Not to disappear." He exhaled angrily. "You're causing problems." "No," I said quietly. "I'm correcting them." He hung up. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, there was a knock on my door. I opened it slowly. It was the bride. She stood stiffly, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She looked around my small living room like she was judging it. "You're making things difficult," she said without sitting down. "I'm living my life," I replied. She laughed coldly. "You think this gives you power?" I met her eyes. "I don't think," I said. "I know." Her smile faded for the first time. "You should stop," she warned, "before this gets ugly." I walked to the table and picked up the envelope. "This," I said, holding it up, "is already ugly. I just decided to look at it." Her eyes followed the envelope. For a brief second, I saw fear. Then she straightened. "You'll regret this," she said. She turned and left. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was a message sent to a family group chat I hadn't been active in for months. "We are setting boundaries. Please respect our decision." I read it slowly. Then I noticed something else. Attached files. Documents. The same ones I had. But changed. Edited. Incomplete. My heart dropped. They were trying to move without me. And they had made a mistake. A big one. I grabbed my purse and the envelope and rushed out. I knew exactly where I had to go. Back to the office. When I arrived, the woman looked up in shock. "They're moving already," I said breathlessly. She took the papers, scanned them quickly, and her eyes widened. "They don't know," she said. "Know what?" I asked. She looked at me seriously. "That without your final signature, everything stops." My phone buzzed again. A new message. From my son. "Please come over. We need to fix this tonight." I looked up at her. "What happens if I go?" I asked. She closed the file slowly. "Everything changes," she said. I stared at my phone. Then I stood up. Because I knew one thing for sure. They thought this conversation would end me. But it was only beginning. As I reached for the door, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. And a voice I had not heard in years said, "They are lying to you. They are lying to you." The words came through the phone slowly, clearly, like each one was meant to sink deep into my heart. I stood still, right there in the office doorway, my hand frozen on the door handle. "Who is this?" I asked. There was a short pause. "Someone who warned you once," the voice replied. My chest tightened. I knew that voice. Not from yesterday. Not from last year. From long ago. From a time when my son was still young and the world felt uncertain. "Why are you calling me now?" I asked, my voice low. "Because what they're trying to do can't happen without you," the voice said. "And they know it." I ended the call and turned back to the woman in the office. "You heard?" I asked. She nodded. "That voice used to call here too." My heart skipped. "You know who it is?" She hesitated. "Someone who helped you protect what mattered most. Someone they don't want involved again." I sat down heavily. Memories rushed back. Late meetings. Careful conversations. Warnings I had pushed aside because I trusted my own family. I looked up. "They want me to come over tonight." She leaned forward. "They want your signature. Or your silence." I nodded slowly. "Then I should go," I said. She studied me. "Only if you're ready." I picked up the envelope. I've been ready longer than I knew. The drive to their house felt longer than usual. Every street brought back memories. I remembered walking my son to school. Holding his hand. Telling him to always tell the truth. I parked outside their home. The lights were on. The door opened before I even knocked. My son stood there, tense, his smile forced. "Thank you for coming," he said quickly. Inside, the house smelled new. Clean. Perfect. The bride sat on the couch, arms folded, watching me closely. "We just want to clear some misunderstandings," she said. I sat down slowly. "Go on," I replied. My son handed me a stack of papers. "We need you to sign these," he said. so we can move forward. I flipped through them calmly. They were the edited documents. Incomplete. Careless. I looked up. These aren't finished, I said. The bride's jaw tightened. They're enough, she replied. No, I said firmly. They're not. She stood up. Why are you doing this? She snapped. Why can't you just let us live our lives? I looked at her. I am letting you live your life, I said quietly. I'm just not disappearing from it. My son rubbed his face in frustration. This is exactly why we wanted boundaries, he said. Boundaries don't erase people, I replied. Silence filled the room. Then the bride spoke again, softer this time. You were supposed to fade away, she said. The words hung in the air. My heart broke a little more. But I stayed calm. I raised him, I said. I didn't raise a ghost. She pushed a pen toward me. Just sign, she said. And we can all move on. I picked up the pen. They both leaned forward slightly. I paused. Then I put the pen down. I won't sign this, I said. The room exploded. The bride shouted. My son yelled. Words flew like knives. You're ruining everything. You're selfish. You don't care about our future. I stood up slowly. I care enough to tell the truth, I said. Then I turned toward the door. Where are you going? My son demanded. To speak to someone who doesn't lie to me, I replied. Outside, the night air felt heavy. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Did they show you the papers? The voice asked. Yes, I replied. They're trying to rush it, the voice said. Because once the other document is filed, they lose control. What document? I asked. There was a pause. The one they never told you about. My heart raced. I need to see it, I said. You will, the voice replied. But first, they're going to try something desperate. The next morning, my phone was full of missed calls, messages, voicemails. Family members suddenly wanted to talk. Suddenly, I mattered again. One message stood out. From the bride. You left us no choice. I felt a chill. I rushed to the office again. The woman there looked worried. They filed something overnight, she said. Without me? I asked. She nodded. They tried. She looked up sharply. But it was rejected. Relief washed over me. Then she added. For now. She handed me another file. This is what they're hiding, she said. I opened it. And my hands began to shake. Because inside was proof. Proof of lies. Proof of manipulation. Proof that the whisper at the wedding was never just words. It was a plan. A plan that started long before the wedding day. And my name was written all over it. I looked up slowly. They thought I was weak, I whispered. The woman nodded. They thought you would stay quiet. My phone rang again. This time, it was my son. His voice was shaking. They know, he said. Know what? I asked. That you've seen the file. I closed my eyes. Because I knew what came next would not be gentle. They're coming to you, he said. I looked at the door. And just then, someone knocked. The knock was slow. Not loud. Not angry. Just 3 calm taps. The kind that tells you the person on the other side is not afraid. I looked at the woman in the office. She didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the door. Do you want me to call security? She asked quietly. I shook my head. No, I said. Let them in. Because deep down, I knew this moment had been coming for years. She stood and stepped back as I walked toward the door. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was clear. I opened it. 2 people stood there. One was my son. The other was the bride. They both looked different. No smiles. No confidence. No control. Just tension. We need to talk, my son said. I stepped aside without a word. They entered the office slowly, like they were stepping onto ground that could break at any moment. The bride looked around, then back at me. You shouldn't be here, she said sharply. This office exists because of me, I replied calmly. That made her pause. My son swallowed. We didn't know you still had influence. Influence. That word almost made me laugh. I never lost it, I said. I just stopped being loud. The woman from the office sat back down and opened the file. You tried to file incomplete documents, she said directly to them. That's serious. The bride's face tightened. We were trying to move forward, she replied. By cutting someone out, the woman said. That's not moving forward. That's stealing. My son stepped in quickly. No one is stealing anything. I looked at him. Then why hide it? I asked. Silence. The bride took a deep breath and crossed her arms. This was supposed to be simple, she said. She was supposed to step back. She repeated. Not mother. Not family. Just she. You made promises, she continued, turning to me. You said you would support us. I did, I replied. I did not say I would disappear. You're controlling, she snapped. You always want to say. The words stung. But I didn't raise my voice. I wanted respect, I said. The woman at the desk cleared her throat. There's more, she said, sliding the hidden file forward. The bride froze. My son stared at it, confused. What is that? He asked. I watched his face as he opened it. Page after page. His hands began to shake. This isn't possible, he whispered. It is, the woman replied. And it explains everything. The room felt smaller. I could see the truth sinking in. This plan, I said quietly, started before the wedding. My son looked at the bride. She didn't look back. You told me this was normal, he said slowly. You said this was how families worked. She snapped her head up. I was protecting us. From what? He asked. From my own mother? She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. My phone buzzed. Another message. Unknown number. She's going to deny everything. I looked up. She always does, I said softly. The bride took a step toward me. You think this makes you powerful? She asked. You're just alone. I met her gaze. I was alone before, I said. I survived that too. My son finally spoke. Why didn't you tell me? He asked me. I swallowed. Because I trusted you, I said. His eyes filled with something close to regret. But it was too late for easy apologies. The woman closed the file. This doesn't end tonight, she said. There are consequences. The bride's face went pale. What consequences? She asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The weight of silence did enough. As we stood there, my son's phone rang. He answered. His face changed. Yes, he said. I understand. He hung up and looked at the bride. They know, he said. Know what? She demanded. That you tried to move everything without consent. Her confidence shattered. She turned to me, her voice low. We can fix this, she said. Just help us. I thought about the whisper at the wedding. The cold smile. The words no longer family. I already tried, I said. Suddenly, the door behind us opened again. Another person stepped in. Someone older. Someone calm. The same voice from the phone. The past had arrived in person. I warned you both, the voice said. The bride froze. My son looked confused. I felt my heart pound. Because I knew now. This wasn't just about a wedding. It was about everything they thought they could take. And they were finally out of time. The room went silent. No music. No shouting. Not even breathing felt safe. The older person who had just entered closed the door gently behind them. The sound of the latch clicking into place felt louder than any scream. The bride stepped back. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice tight. The older person looked at her calmly. "I was here long before you." My son turned slowly, confused. "Who is this?" I didn't answer. I watched. Because this was the moment I had been carrying inside me for years. The older person walked toward the desk and placed a folder down beside the other files. "You were warned," they said again, this time looking directly at the bride. "You chose to rush instead." The bride shook her head quickly. "That's not true." "It is," the older person replied. "You assumed she would stay quiet." My son looked between us. "What is happening?" I finally spoke. "You were told pieces," I said softly. "Not the whole truth." He stared at me. "About what?" "About everything," I replied. The woman at the desk opened the new folder. "This," she said carefully, "is the part that was never explained to you." She slid the papers toward my son. He read the first page. Then the second. His face drained of color. "No," he whispered. "This can't be real." The bride stepped forward. "Stop reading that." He pulled the papers closer to himself. "Why didn't you tell me this?" he asked her. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because there was no lie left that would fit. The truth came out slowly. Not shouted. Not thrown. Just revealed. How decisions were made quietly. How pressure was applied gently, over time. How I was meant to step back, then disappear. The whisper at the wedding was only the final step. "You planned this," my son said, his voice shaking. "I planned our future," the bride snapped. "Without interference." He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "By erasing my mother?" "She agreed to support us." "I agreed to love you," I said quietly. "Not to be erased." My son sat down heavily. "I thought this was normal," he said. "You said this was how families work." The older person spoke gently. "Healthy families don't need secrets." The bride's hands curled into fists. "This is unfair," she said. "You're all against me." "No," the woman at the desk replied. "We're against deception." Outside, rain began to fall. Soft at first. Then harder. Each drop felt like time running out. My phone buzzed again. A message from a family member I hadn't heard from in months. "Is it true?" I didn't reply. "Not yet." The bride suddenly laughed. A sharp, broken sound. "You think this changes anything?" she said. "We're married now." The older person looked at her steadily. "Marriage doesn't erase obligations," they said. "It creates them." My son stood up slowly. "Did you know this would hurt her?" he asked the bride. She hesitated, then said, "She would get over it." Something inside him broke. I saw it. The boy I raised was finally waking up. "I need time," he said quietly. The bride spun toward him. "You're choosing her?" He shook his head. "I'm choosing the truth." That hurt her more than anything else. The woman at the desk closed the files. "There will be reviews," she said. "Meetings. Decisions." "When?" the bride demanded. "Soon," she replied. "Very soon." The bride turned to me, desperation creeping into her voice. "We can still fix this," she said. "Just tell them you misunderstood." I thought about the whisper, the smile, the confidence. "I understood perfectly," I said. The older person stepped closer to me. "You did the right thing," they said quietly. I nodded. But I knew this was far from over. Because people who lose control do not let go easily. They fight. As we prepared to leave, my son touched my arm. "I didn't know," he said softly. "I know," I replied. But knowing didn't erase the damage. Outside, the rain soaked the ground. As we stepped into the night, the bride stayed behind. Her voice followed us. "This isn't finished." I turned once. "No," I said calmly. "Now it's begun." Behind us, a phone rang loudly inside the office, and the woman at the desk answered it with a serious face. Then she looked up and said, "They've started the formal process." My heart pounded, because I knew what that meant. Everything was about to change. The formal process began quietly. No shouting. No police at the door. No public scenes. Just letters. Emails. Phone calls that came early in the morning and late at night. I watched it all from a distance, like a storm moving closer but not yet breaking. My son stopped calling. Not out of anger. Out of confusion. The bride, however, did not stay quiet. The first message came 2 days later. "You are destroying my marriage." I read it slowly. Then another came. "You always wanted control." Then another. "If you loved him, you would step back." I did not reply. Silence had been my language for years. But this time, silence was not weakness. It was patience. The meetings began. I sat in clean rooms with people who spoke carefully and wrote everything down. They asked me simple questions. Did I understand what I signed years ago? Did I feel pressured? Was I ever told I would be cut out? I answered honestly. Yes. No. Yes. Each answer felt like setting something heavy down. My son was called in next. He did not look at me when he arrived. He sat across the table, shoulders tense. When they asked him if he knew about the full plan, he hesitated. Then he said, "No." When they asked if he believed me, he looked up. "Yes," he said. That one word mattered. Outside the room, the bride paced back and forth. Her heels clicked sharply on the floor. She did not look at me. Not once. But I could feel her anger like heat. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "You think you've won," she said. "I never wanted to win," I replied. "You wanted power," she snapped. "I wanted respect," I said calmly. She laughed bitterly. "You'll end up alone." I paused. "I was alone when you whispered those words," I replied. "And I survived." She hung up. The next morning, I received something unexpected. Flowers. No card. Just flowers. My son's handwriting on the delivery slip. That was all. I cried quietly. Not because everything was fixed, but because something real was finally happening. Days later, the process reached a turning point. A meeting where everyone had to sit in the same room. Together. The woman from the office spoke first. "Based on what we've reviewed," she said, "there were attempts to bypass required consent." The bride stiffened. "That's not fair," she said. "It's documented," the woman replied. My son closed his eyes. Then came the question I had been waiting for. "Do you still wish to exclude her entirely?" The room went still. Everyone looked at my son. He took a deep breath. "No," he said. "I don't." The bride turned toward him, shocked. "What?" she whispered. "I don't want a future built on lies," he continued. "Or on hurting someone who raised me." Her face hardened. "You're choosing her over me," she said loudly. He shook his head. "I'm choosing honesty." The meeting ended without shouting. But something broke permanently. Outside, the bride pulled him aside. I did not hear what she said. But I saw his shoulders slump. I saw his hands shake. And I knew the damage had reached deeper than anyone wanted to admit. That evening, my son came to my house. He stood at the door for a long time before knocking. When I opened it, he looked like a child again. "I'm sorry," he said. I nodded. "I know." He stepped inside. We sat in silence for a while. "I didn't stop her," he said finally. "That hurt the most." He nodded, tears in his eyes. I won't make that mistake again. The next day, the bride made her move. Not with words. With action. I received a notice. A serious one. She was challenging everything. Dragging it into a public fight. I sat at my table, holding the paper. My hands did not shake. I expected this. The older person called again. She's escalating, they said. I know, I replied. Are you ready? They asked. I looked around my small home. At the pictures. The memories. The life I built quietly. Yes, I said. Because when silence stops working, truth speaks louder. And this time, it would be heard. The notice was only 3 pages long. But it felt heavier than anything I had ever held. It was written in cold words. Clean words. Words that pretended to be fair. But I knew what it really was. A declaration of war. She was no longer whispering. No longer warning. No longer pretending to be polite. She wanted to force me out. Loudly, publicly, and finally. That morning, my phone would not stop ringing. Family members. Old friends. People who had not spoken to me in years. Everyone suddenly had questions. Is it true? What's really going on? Why would she do this? I did not answer most of them. Not because I was afraid. But because I understood something very important. When a story goes public, the truth does not rush. It waits. The first article appeared online 2 days later. It was vague. Careful. But clear enough. A family dispute. A disagreement over involvement. A mother who refused to let go. I stared at the screen for a long time. That sentence hurt. Because I had let go. I had let go of control. Of decisions. Of my place. What I had not let go of was my dignity. My son came over that evening. He looked exhausted. She's telling people things, he said quietly. I know, I replied. She says you planned this. That you wanted attention. I almost laughed. Attention finds you when you try to disappear, I said. He sat down, rubbing his temples. I didn't think it would get this bad, he admitted. Neither did I said. But here we are. The meetings became more intense. More people. More questions. More pressure. They asked about my health. My finances. My mental state. I answered calmly. I had nothing to hide. That was the difference. One afternoon, during a break, I overheard 2 voices in the hallway. She's stubborn. She should just settle. I stood still. Not angry. Not hurt. Just certain. People always want peace when the truth makes them uncomfortable. The bride began sending messages again. Long ones this time. You are embarrassing us. You are ruining our future. You will regret this. I saved them all. Every word. Because threats have a way of becoming evidence. Then something unexpected happened. Someone spoke up. Then another. And another. A relative admitted they had been told not to involve me. A friend said they were warned I was difficult. Someone else said they were advised to keep distance. The pattern became impossible to ignore. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a strategy. The older person called me late one night. Things are shifting, they said. I can feel it, I replied. They underestimated you. I smiled faintly. They always do. The biggest moment came at a gathering I never expected. A formal one. Everyone present. I sat quietly as the bride spoke. She talked about boundaries. About independence. About moving forward. Then she turned toward me. You need to accept change, she said loudly. The room went silent. All eyes on me. For a second, my heart beat hard. Then I stood up. I accepted change, I said clearly. I did not accept erasure. A murmur moved through the room. She opened her mouth to respond. But someone else spoke first. We were told things that weren't true, a voice said. Another voice followed. We were misled. Her face tightened. Control was slipping. Later that night, my son found me alone. I didn't know people would listen to you, he said quietly. I didn't speak so they would listen, I replied. I spoke because it was time. He nodded slowly. I'm proud of you, he said. Those words mattered. More than he knew. But pride does not end conflict. It intensifies it. The next morning, I received the final notice. A date. A deadline. A confrontation that would settle everything. One way or another. I placed the paper down carefully. I was not shaking. I was ready. Because when someone drags you into the light, they forget something important. The truth has been waiting there all along. The day arrived quietly. No alarms. No warnings. Just a calm morning that felt heavy, like the air itself knew what was coming. I woke before the sun and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. I listened to the silence in my house. I thought about all the mornings I woke up early to care for someone else. This morning was for me. I dressed slowly. Simple clothes. No jewelry. No armor. I didn't need any. On the table beside my door sat a small stack of papers. Neatly arranged. Clearly labeled. The truth does not need decoration. When I arrived, the room was already full. People sat in straight lines, faces serious, hands folded. Some avoided my eyes. Others watched me closely. The bride sat across the room. Her posture was perfect. Her face calm. But her eyes betrayed her. They flicked toward me, then away. My son arrived moments later and sat between us. He looked like someone standing between two storms. The proceedings began. Carefully. Slowly. They reviewed timelines. Documents. Messages. Each piece placed gently on the table, like something fragile. The bride spoke confidently at first. She described misunderstandings. Different expectations. Cultural differences. She painted a picture of a woman who refused to let go. I listened without interrupting. Then it was my turn. I stood up. I did not rush. I did not raise my voice. I was told I was no longer family, I said simply. A ripple moved through the room. She whispered it, I continued. At a wedding. Surrounded by joy. The bride shifted in her seat. I did not respond, I said. I did not shout. I did not fight. I waited. I placed my papers down. These are the messages I received afterward. They were read aloud. Not all of them. Just enough. The room grew quieter. My son was asked to speak. He hesitated. Then he said, I didn't know everything. But I know now. That sentence changed the tone. The bride's confidence cracked. Why didn't you stop this? She asked him sharply. He looked at her. Because it needed to happen, he replied. She stared at him like he had betrayed her. A question was asked that none of us expected. Was there an attempt to force separation without consent? The bride opened her mouth, then closed it. Because the answer was already in the room. More evidence was reviewed. Conversations. Edits. Timelines that didn't align. The strategy became visible. Silence. Pressure. Speed. The oldest tricks. I felt something strange as the hours passed. Relief. Not because I was winning, but because I was finally seen. During a short break, my son sat beside me. I should have protected you, he said quietly. You are protecting me now, I replied. He nodded, eyes wet. When the proceedings resumed, the final question was asked. Is reconciliation possible? Everyone looked at us. I answered first. I never closed the door, I said. The bride laughed bitterly. You opened it just to walk out, she said. I looked at her calmly. You pushed me through it. Silence followed. The decision was not announced immediately. It never is. Instead, we were told to wait. Days. Maybe weeks. We stood to leave. The bride brushed past me and whispered, "You'll regret this." I turned my head slightly. I already survived it, I replied. Outside, the sky was gray. My son walked with me. I don't know what happens now, he said. Neither do I replied. But I know who I am. That mattered. That night, I sat alone again. But this time, the silence felt different. Not empty. Peaceful. My phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. You told the truth. That's enough. I placed the phone down and looked around my home. Tomorrow would bring an answer. One that would change everything. And no matter what it was, I was ready. The waiting was worse than the confrontation. Days passed slowly, each hour stretching longer than the last. Every sound in my house felt louder. Every knock made my heart jump. I kept my phone close, even when I slept, as if the truth might arrive quietly and leave if I was not ready. My son called often. Not to ask questions. Not to argue. Just to check if I was okay. That alone told me how much had already changed. On the fifth morning, the call finally came. A calm voice. A short sentence. The decision is ready. My hands did not shake. I thanked them and hung up. Then I sat down. I thought about the wedding day again. The music. The smiles. The whisper that tried to erase me. I stood up. This time, I walked toward the truth without fear. The room was fuller than before. More people. More eyes. More tension. The bride sat very still. Too still. My son sat beside me. Close enough that I could feel his arm brush against mine. He did not pull away. That mattered. The decision was read slowly. Carefully. Each word chosen with purpose. They spoke about responsibility, consent, intent. They spoke about pressure and silence. Then they spoke about wrongdoing. The bride's face went pale. Based on the evidence, the voice continued, there were deliberate attempts to remove her role without legal or moral standing. A murmur moved through the room. The bride shook her head. That's not true. But her voice sounded smaller now. The consequences were listed. Restrictions. Reversals. Reviews that would not go away quietly. My son closed his eyes. The bride finally turned toward him. You let this happen, she said sharply. He looked back at her. No, he replied. You did. Then came the sentence that changed everything. All actions taken without her consent are hereby invalid. The room went silent. The bride stood up suddenly. You can't do this, she shouted. Security stepped forward. The calm was gone. I stayed seated. I did not need to move. I had already stood my ground. Outside, reporters waited. Questions flew like arrows. I said nothing. My son held the door open for me. As we walked away, he whispered, I'm sorry it took this long. I nodded. Some lessons are slow, I replied. That night, something unexpected happened. The bride came to my door. Alone. No anger this time. Just desperation. We can still fix this, she said quietly. I looked at her. At the person who whispered cruelty in a room full of love. I tried, I said. You refused. She swallowed. You don't understand what you've done. I met her eyes. Oh, I said calmly. I understand perfectly. I closed the door. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from my son. She's packing. I sat down slowly. Not relieved. Not happy. Just aware. Because endings are never clean. They bleed into beginnings. Then another message arrived. Not from him. From the unknown number. The final file just surfaced. My heart tightened. What file? I typed. The reply came quickly. The one that proves this wasn't just about you. I stared at the screen. Because I knew what that meant. This was bigger than a wedding. Bigger than a whisper. Bigger than one family. And whatever was in that file was about to change everything again. I did not sleep that night. The message about the final file stayed on my mind like a quiet knock that would not stop. I sat at my table, the same table where I once helped with homework, where I once planned birthdays, where I once believed love was enough to hold people together. At sunrise, the phone rang. "This ends today," the calm voice said. "But you need to see this yourself." The file was waiting when I arrived. Thick. Organized. Undeniable. It showed a pattern, not just with me. Other voices. Other families. Other people quietly pushed out after weddings, contracts, and promises. The same methods. The same pressure. The same silence. I closed my eyes. It was never personal. It was practiced. The decision that followed was swift. Not loud. Not dramatic. Permanent. Actions were taken. Records corrected. Warnings issued. Some doors closed forever. Others finally opened. Later that day, my son came to see me. He looked lighter, like someone who had been holding his breath for years. "I chose honesty," he said. "Even when it cost me." I nodded. "That choice will save you more than it hurts you," I replied. We sat together quietly. No fixing the past, but building something real. That evening, I cooked dinner for two. Simple food. Warm food. Family food. As we ate, I realized something important. Family is not who whispers power over you. Family is who tells the truth, even when it hurts. Family is who stays when control fails. Weeks later, the noise faded. The calls stopped. Life slowed. Peace returned, not because I won but because I stood. I was never erased. I was revealed. And now, before I go, let me say this to you listening right now. If someone ever tries to silence you quietly, if someone ever tells you that you no longer belong, remember this. Truth does not need permission to exist. And neither do you. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and turn on your notifications so you never miss powerful stories like this. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is refuse to disappear.